Welcome to Flux Bug Scrub, June 11th, 2024. I have here with me Christian Hernandez. Hello, Christian.
Hey, how you doing?
It's a special edition. We're
Uh,
going to have a presentation here, so why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, so kind of presentation slash demo. Going to be talking about a project that I've been working on that is very GitOps related, and is currently Argo CD centric. However, um, the idea is to support other tools beyond Argo CD, and then immediately Flux, right, is the first one that comes to mind when people think about GitOps tools. So it's very relevant to the Flux community, and it's something that we actually do want the Flux community members to submit feedback, to play around with the tool and everything. But I want to step back a little bit and kind of do kind of like a mini presentation and then go into the demo. This is kind of an augmented version of a presentation I did at GitOpsCon. So I'm not going to go through it too deeply because a lot of it you can just watch the video on GitOpsCon, but but I did update it and augment it a little bit to talk about um, CI/CD, right? So like Kargo is a project that aims to um, help with GitOps CI/CD, right? And so CI/CD really, when you think of CI/CD, this is like the picture people get in their minds, right? So it's like kind of like this linear kind of path to production. But the reality, it really like kind of looks like this. This is the reality is that something triggers some sort of change, but there's like many things that happen, and those processes can have sub processes as well. It's kind of like a mesh, right? Like kind of like a multiverse of things that need to happen, and not even to include things like canary rollouts, A/B deployments, hot fixes, analysis. All these things come into play, and this is really the reality of CI/CD. We think of it as this, but it's actually kind of like this. Um, and um, and we see people kind of bolting on not only Kubernetes, but kind of like GitOps in general, kind of at the tail end of the CI/CD um, process. Basically, that's like, all right, like we'll just keep doing what we're doing with CI/CD, but instead of like FTPing something, it's a kubectl apply, or it's we'll commit it to some repo, and GitOps kind of takes after this, which works fine initially, but as people are maturing, as the ecosystem is getting adopted more and more into like Kubernetes and GitOps in general, um, promotions are becoming difficult, and promotions are becoming really, really weird. And everyone, most people are just relying on CI to do the job, right? So in order to do promotions, what we see is that people will like drop into, one of their CI processes is a bash, kind of a bash scripts, kind of bespoke kind of scripts out there that aren't very portable. They're very specific to that deployment. And we think that CI is being overused to do the job of CD in the context of GitOps. I put that like very small here in the context of GitOps. Really, you have to contextualize it. Is CI is being overused, right? And it's because they have distinct kind of. We lump them together because we come from a background of like Jenkins, right, where like it has like a platform that does everything, but really they're really distinct things, and they have um distinct end goals, right? Like if you think of CI, it's basically the goal is given an artifact, build me this artifact. But by design, they're short lived, right? They have a predefined beginning and end. It's the CI process pipeline is done once the specific job or jobs is successful, and they're really smaller in scope. Top down definition, really rigid. Um, Suitable for building again artifacts or like repeatable E to E testing and things like that. Whereas CD pipelines or deployments, giving that artifact, can you roll it out safely? And it's really indeterminate how long, right? Whereas CI is short lived. CD is really indefinite. Canary can take weeks, months. You don't know. And in some cases, they're really only done when the next CD process starts, right? You're continuously monitoring, continuously um, collecting data from it. Um, and it's really larger in scope because it requires flexibility instead of kind of this prescriptive top-down kind of view. Things like A/B testing, prod fixes, rollbacks, continuous verification, things like that, right? They're very, very distinct and very, very different. And in the context of GitOps, we're seeing people kind of pushing a lot of the things that were happening in CD into CI, because um, now you have this different paradigm of GitOps, and once you merge something into either source of truth, or whether it's you merge it or you push it S3 bucket, whatever OCI, um, that ends up on the platform, right? And so GitOps is great, right? But GitOps itself doesn't understand like relationship between deployment targets. Um, it doesn't. GitOps in general is very opinionated, or is removed, is pushed to the right of the process. It doesn't really provide a pipeline to orchestrate these changes. It doesn't write changes back to Git. And so, there's the Argo CD image updater and the Flux image automation tool, right? These are spot features, or these are spot kind of, yeah, spot features where basically kind of just it's made for one thing, one specific thing, and it does it well. But it doesn't have like the holistic um a viewpoint on it, right? So Flux itself, or Argo CD itself, it doesn't actually do that. It passes that on. It has another sub process that does the automation, and it doesn't really verify the updates after the deploy completes, right? There's health checks and things like that, but um, health checks are a little bit more complex. I'm not too sure in the Flux ecosystem, but I know in Argo we rely heavily on things like the Kubernetes health status to determine if something is rolled out and deployed. So we really heavily in the Argo CD ecosystem, we heavily rely on those like readiness probes and liveness probes and things like that to make sure something's rolled out.
But
Um,
as far as
uh,
the image automation, it's just writing a tag into a file. It's not
yes,
any of that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and that's what Argo CD image updater does as well. It just kind of writes that image tag. Oh, there's a new image tag. Let me write that back. Um, and so yeah, so this actually slide came from a conversation I had with someone at KubeCon at Amsterdam, and uh, too bad Scott Rigby isn't here, because like we kind of tag team this question this person had is like I have I'm bought this person said I'm bought into GitOps, I'm fully into GitOps, but promotions are really really hard, and somehow things got harder with GitOps, right? Because if you think about it, with GitOps, to do a promotion of application is one or many image builds, and or one or many Git repo commits, and or one or many Helm charts, and those process can have one or many, and yada yada yada, or like kind of the title of my GitOpsCon talk was everything everywhere all at once, right? Because it's like it's essentially that, and things like microservices compound these problems because they have their own sub processes and things that need to happen. You're herding cats of different species, and coordinating a release actually got harder with GitOps. At least that's kind of the feedback that we've been getting from people, because you're waiting on many things to happen, and people are trying to update those together. So I talked about Kargo, and this is kind of the problem that Kargo tries to solve, right? We call it multi-stage GitOps application orchestration, automated GitOps promotion. And we coined the phrase, we like to talk about it as continuous promotion, right? We have CI, we have CD. Now we're thinking about it like as in the context of GitOps CP, right? Continuous promotion, right? How do we take the same paradigm of GitOps and fit it into promotion between environments, right? And it's completely open source under the Apache license. So it's completely open source. This is kind of my way of telling the Flux community is like, hey, like we would like actually more feedback, because we do want to support more than just one thing. Right now, it's very tightly integrated with Argo, only because it came from the creators of the Argo project. So they also started this project as well. But we did hire some Flux maintainers. Hide is someone that's on the Kargo team. So we do have a unifying look on what Kargo is supposed to look like, right? And so I do want to talk about just some concepts, because we're introducing new concepts, because this is kind of like a new uncharted territory. When I say something is freight, when I say freight, it's actually just a collection of artifacts that get promoted together, right? And that's kind of like the picture I have there. It's like, okay, like what constitutes a promotion? It's like, well, I need some sort of git config change. I need an image change. And also there's like a Helm update that I need to try. I need to track all these things. And we aggregate kind of like the metadata together. Right, when there's a new git commit, where there's new image update, there's a new Helm, a chart update, and we kind of aggregate those together, and then we translate it into a git commit to the proper places in your git repository. So when I say freight, it's really a collection of artifacts, and it's like collection of the metadata of those artifacts. When I talk about freight, right? So artifacts equals freight, or a collection of artifacts equals freight. And warehouse, well, so we say warehouse, which is basically kind of where freight gets staged, right? So once we collect it and it's ready to be promoted, we store it in basically a CRD. Is just kind of, it's a CRD that keeps the track of all that stuff. And you can just think about it as a collection of freight, or where we stage freight. It also has filtering rules, and this is kind of like one of the reasons why we created a warehouse. Is like, well, what constitutes a promotable freight, right? Like, especially in Git, like if someone makes a change to the README file, does that constitute do I need to promote that? Is so you can have like different filtering rules and things like that, so you don't have a lot of noise coming through, because you can imagine a very busy Git repository will have a lot of noise coming down the pipeline. And so that's essentially what warehouse is. And then we actually use the term stage, right? So we use stages instead of environments, right? We were actually thinking about using kind of environments like in the same way people use environments all the time: dev, test, production. But an environment can mean different things to different people, so we actually avoid it, right? Like we ask, if you ask like a developer, like, oh, what's dev? It's like, well, that's this version of my application. You ask like an operation person, like, oh, what's dev? He goes, oh, that's a boundary in AWS. That's US East 1 with these VPC rules and these firewall rules and this RBAC and these Kyverno rules. Like they mean different things. So we use the word stages, and it actually just means a stage is just a reflection of the purpose of the application instance, right? What's the purpose of this application instance? That's what we mean by stage. I'll use them interchangeably, and I'm guilty of using them interchangeably. Because for the most part, people will kind of make a one-to-one relationship. But anyways, that kind of just like a background of what stages is. It's like, what's the purpose of this application? Like where is it supposed to run? And stages include rule sets on how to promote something, right? Like how to promote, meaning like where. So if I get like an image tag update, where do you want me to write that? Do you want me to write that to a specific file? And if you do you want me to create a deployment repo? Do you want me to push it to OCI? Like, how do you want me to promote? Do you want me to create a PR instead of committing directly back into your source of truth? So so stages include, it's also another CRD that includes rule sets for what gets promoted and things like that. So stages also in the Argo ecosystem does an on-demand sync. So it'll like git commit, and then it'll sync the application or reconcile the application as soon as it's done doing whatever promotion mechanisms here. That's the tight coupling currently. We do want to expand that to be other things as well. But and then can it be promoted? So that's what we call subscriptions. So subscriptions, I've been doing a lot of traveling. So the only thing that came to mind is kind of like TSA, where it's like, okay, I have a flight, like I'm flying to New York, for example, from LAX. So I go through TSA and LAX, and the airline will let me on the plane because it trusts that I went through TSA, and I had a layover in Atlanta, right? Well, that the airline lets me on the next plane because the previous plane let me on, and the previous plane let me on because of TSA. So it kind of has that providence that follows me around. So that's essentially what subscriptions are. So basically, you can say, "Oh, hey, um, dev or test when dev promotion when you promote something to dev and that is successful, make that freight available to me so I can promote it." Is essentially what it is. So subscriptions, so freight, stages can subscribe to a warehouse, meaning source of freight, or other stages, and these are one or many, right? It can be one or many. It doesn't have to be linear. Although the demo I'm going to go through is linear, but it doesn't have to be linear. You can subscribe to other things as well. So and what another cool thing is like the verification. So verifications can be done between promotions. So and verifications come, I'll talk about it in a little later, but verifications come in the form of like querying things like Prometheus or like CloudWatch or things like that, right? So so really Kargo is a kind of a promotion control plane mechanism, and that interacts with your source of truth, or Git, essentially with Git, and it can track things that matter to a GitOps pipeline. So either a Git repository, container registry, or a Helm registry, and it's kind of a management platform to do that, right? So how does it work? So Kargo kind of sits in the middle, right before or like right between your GitOps repo and your GitOps controller. So, for example, someone creates a configuration change in Git. Someone builds an image, and that goes through whatever CI process it goes through. Kargo will then detect the last part of that change, meaning like if you once you that Git commit gets merged, once that container registry, once that CI process builds and pushes that container registry image into that registry, Kargo will go, oh, hey, there's a new version. Let me promote that to whichever environment you want me to promote that to by writing back to that Git repo. And then once I write back to that, I'm going to initiate a reconciliation, meaning so you can either initiate a reconciliation. You can wait till the GitOps controller does it. GitOps controller is kind of independent, or is loosely coupled because it doesn't really know anything about Kargo. It's just tracking whatever you're telling your source of truth, right? It's tracking Git to whatever branch, whatever revision, and it just notices a change. It just does what it already normally does. Kargo will then verify once your application is running. So it does that by either querying Datadog or Prometheus. CloudWatch. Kargo utilizes Argo, a subset of Argo rollouts, which is, I believe it's Flagger is the equivalent to Flagger for Flux, but for the Argo ecosystem. It utilizes some of the code that it does verifications there. We get a lot of this stuff for quote unquote for free. There wasn't a lot of overhead. We kind of just reused some of some of that same code. And then this process repeats, right? From three on as you're promoting, right? It'll write those changes to Git. We'll verify it. Once that verifies it, it'll mark it as healthy. So too long didn't read, right? What's the TLDR of Kargo? Kargo focuses on the delivery of those artifacts, while Argo CD or Flux focuses on the actual deployment of those artifacts. And so it's kind of like I made this comparison. I don't know if it's a good comparison. Maybe someone will make a better one later. But I compare it to like kind of like Amazon and like TaskRabbit, right? Like Amazon focuses on delivering that table you ordered in a box, and then TaskRabbit will then deploy it onto right. We'll put it together for you, right? So Kargo is the Amazon aspect of it, and the GitOps controller like Argo CD or Flux is the TaskRabbit. It actually will take what it's delivered to it and deploy it and make sure it's okay and safely. And maybe I'll come up with a better analogy later. So I did create a demo. So I did mention that it's tightly coupled with Argo CD. However, it works with Flux today. And only because it's completely we wrote it completely agnostic to the GitOps tool. And so I have I have a Kargo here up and running. Um and I have kind of like a pipeline set up here. Let me make this a little bigger. Um and I have like two repos. Let me make this bigger as well. This may or may not work for Flux. I kind of set it up to how I would set it up in Argo, but essentially I have a control plane. Essentially, all it does is installs, it bootstraps the system, so it does kind of like Flux bootstrap essentially, and then I added things like Kargo specific things. So tell me, so I installed like cert manager, Kargo, Argo rollouts, all the things that are for like the cluster, but not necessarily for the application, right? So the application YAML and Kargo pipeline is in another repo. And this is kind of like the repo that, for example, developers or release managers or platform engineers, I don't know, whoever is responsible for delivering the applications to the platform. This is kind of the repo to work out of. So this is kind of how I did it. I'm actually not sure if it's the best way, but this is how how it's done. And I'm kind of focused on this specific repo. So I have an application in 3 different environments, right? I have test, UAT, and prod, right? So this is a test environment, it's UAT environment, and this is the prod environment, all running the same version of the application. If I drop down to my Git repo, I can do a Flux, what is it? Get customizations. As you can see, I have a prod, test, UAT, and Kargo up and running. I got Helm releases. I got these up and running to install. So you can just see I just have this cluster already pre-hydrated, right? Because it's I don't want to take too much time building it out. And so if I do get pods, right, I have just a simple kind cluster running Flux, running Kargo, and running the application in their individual namespaces. So what I do want to show is a little bit of the Kargo configuration. So so pipeline. So I have a warehouse. This warehouse is very simple. All I'm doing is like give me every commit, basically track this Git repo, and let me know when there's a new commit for it. And that's really all this is like very, very dead simple. It can get really, really complex as you can imagine, right? Like, because you can subscribe to multiple things, not just Git, but Helm, blah, 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 yada, 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 all the way down. Turtles all the way down, right? And you can have constraints like semver constraints and whatever rule sets you want, what constitutes a promotion. So, and then all the stages look pretty much the same. A few things I want to call out is that the test is subscribed to the warehouse, meaning that anything that lands in the warehouse, make that available to the stage. And then let me go back to like a UAT here. A UAT is subscribed to test. So anything that was fine in test, that'll be available for me to promote. And then promotion mechanisms. So I'm saying anytime I see a new change, can you write that change into this branch for me? So there's a few things Kargo can do. Kargo has a built-in rendered manifests pattern that you have a rendered manifest. It renders the manifest for you and it'll put it in a deployable repo, or you can just write directly back into main, whatever your source of truth is. That's all up to you. You can make promotion mechanisms. You can also do a PR instead of writing directly to the repo. So it's pretty flexible in what a promotion actually does. And then one thing that I'm leaving empty because we're not going to use it is after you promote it, what do you do after the promotion? If you're running Argo CD, it basically you'll list your Argo CD information here of what app to run the reconcile in and blah, blah, blah. So, but we're not going to do that. I do want to call intention is that I'm kind of doing a poor man's version of that. With the I'm gonna using the analysis template. I'm basically leveraging the analysis template. I'm doing the reconcile in the analysis step. And I'll kind of show you what that work kind of looks like. I believe is it here? Hold on.
So we get a
Yeah.
new commit, and then to test the commit, we reconcile, which has like a side effect. It's good.
Yeah, as a
Okay.
side effect, yeah, currently. And we're doing that in the verification step. So basically if you see here in line 24, I'm doing a Flux reconcile customization from whatever app you give me. And this is really only the poor man's version until we can write an actual support for Flux in the Kargo in going back to the stage, right? In this area, instead of Argo CD app updates, it could be like Flux and then an object customization and whatever the name of the customization, and then Kargo will do it for you. I imagine that's how it'll be.
I think it would be a
But
source. Then the source reconciles what's
yeah,
downstream.
with source, blah blah blah, right? It'll be in that. But since that support isn't written yet, I'm actually quote unquote cheating, right? I'm just doing it in the in the reconcile in the analysis, because analysis, for those who aren't familiar with Argo rollouts, analysis template, you can tell it to query Prometheus, Datadog, CloudWatch, or tell it to run this script. And that's basically what we're using is run this as analysis. And so, but then you can actually see all of it chained together, right? And so, so for this particular demo, it's just going to be very, very easy. I'm just going to set the image on base. So this is kind of cool where yeah, customization. So so this is kind of cool. This is a side effect of kind of like the rendered manifest pattern, to where like, how do I update base but then safely promote that, because base affects everything versus modifying individual like overlays. But with this is like basically one of the things that people have asked us, like how do we promote that, and then Kargo can show that to you, right? So I do a get diff, right? So I'm going from blue to green, and I do a get add, get commit, going green. I'll just do that. That's right. Always sign your commits. Get push origin. Cool. So then what happens then is that, again, like all GetOps tools is a reconciliation timeout. I don't want to wait for that, so I'm just going to refresh it now. On demand refresh, and you see I got a new freight here. And it has information for me like the get repo, who which branch, right, who committed that, and what the message was, the metadata from the get commit. Live manifest, right, it'll show you information like the get commit ID and information and things like that. So how do we promote this? So essentially pick a target. Right now, test comes up, I'm going to say yes. And oh wait, got an error. Invalid username and password. Oh, did my token run out? 1 second. Let me move this off camera because I'm gonna look to see which token I actually used. Oh, echo. Mm, you know what's funny? I did get an email that one of my tokens expired. I wonder if this one was it. Oh yeah, I did. Okay, that was my bad. I could fix that. Uh, 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 uh. Wait, let me clear the screen. History. What is the command? History. Delete. Yeah. Clear. Okay. Where is the Cargo delete credentials. What's the name of the credential? Well, since I cleared my, you can see what I'm doing here. Project cargo demo. Cargo get credentials. Because I never added them. Flux, there we go. Okay, let's try one more time. Remote, yes, there it goes. So now it promoted the environment and now it's running the verification. So essentially, it had a promotion, it succeeded, meaning it successfully wrote back to Git, and then the verification happened, which means I can refresh this and that should be a green box. Remember I modified base. So if I check like UAT and prod, they're still in the blue box because I'm using rendered manifests, right? They're all pointing to a different branch. And so to go down this line here, I can click on promote stage. So notice how when I click promote here, this one is grayed out because I can't promote this because that wasn't verified anywhere. I'm not I'm subscribed to whatever was in test, and this was never in test. So I can go ahead and promote that. Again, this will run, and then it'll basically do a flux reconcile after it. It'll once commit, and it'll do a flux reconcile after it commit. And once that's done, that should be available to me as a green box. And as you would imagine, again, I can promote that down the line, and again, it'll do the verification. In that once it's green, right? And so, it does that. So that's kind of like the promotion process for Cargo and Flux and how it works together and how you can use it to orchestrate updates. It could that is a simple cargo dot no wait demo dot cargo.
So maybe what's happening in the Git repository then? Are we pushing to different branches or what does the
Yeah,
command look like from the Git repo?
Yeah, so if I refresh this page here, you see that it pushes it to a deployment branch, essentially. And so the way I have it set up, I use main as an interface into these branches, and then my branches are just kind of deployment branches. I can have cargo right to my main branch if I wanted to. But since I was updating base, I had to do it kind of in a rendered manifest way. But those translate into branches. So if I go to like the prod branch, and you can see cargo render, applied some changes. Here, if I go to base and go to customization, it'll see that it's green there. So, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's just kind of the way I have it set up. But yeah, it basically they're in deployment branches there. Oh, it's cargo.demo.akuity.io. So, and or it can look like something like this, right? This is actually a view on deployment. So it can do things like this to where once it's promoted, you can like actually promote this to two different environments and do kind of like A/B testing, and then promote one or the other of these. What's cool about this is that there's kind of like a kind of a what do you want to call it? Like a meta stage here called prod, where prod, once you promote it to prod, this prod will then push it out to these three, right, production environments. And this could be three Argo CD applications or three customizations. It can be three separate installations of like Argo CD or Flux, and with each their own customization. It can be sharding, it can be whatever, because Cargo doesn't really do anything in terms of like the reconciliation. All it does is just collects all this metadata here. Here in this example, I subscribe to both a Git and a image update. So the demo I did at GitOpsCon is actually I waited until the image was tagged with the specific version and the Git commit was tagged specific version, meaning a release happened. And then that was the only way that freight came in down. So so it can be as complex as this, right? So here this is kind of like I want to say kind of like a glorified image updater sort of thing, right? Kind of maybe automating a little bit or visualizing a little bit of that, but it can get pretty complex to where you're subscribing to multiple things and you're doing multiple environments with multiple checks in between. You can do like things because each have their own like analysis template verifications that has happened, and grab information on that. So going back to how did I do that? Yeah. So roadmap stuff, right? So we're very much into the beta phase, sorry, in the alpha phase going into beta, but we're in the alpha phase right now. And the idea is make it a generic infrastructure as code, not just GitOps, but also other tools as well. So or things non-Kubernetes, right? Like one of the major things that we want to do is do things like Terraform as well, right? Those Terraform HCLs, and tighter integration with other tools like Atlantis or like from the Red Hat world, Ansible, or again, why I'm here is Flux is another one. Patch promotions, right? So we don't want to wait for a whole Git commit. We just want maybe one file we want to track, for example, like a values.yaml file. It's like anytime this get var values.yaml file changes, I want you to promote those as well, not just wait for a whole event to happen, right? And so we also want to add notifications and hooks, right? So basically what do they call it? Chat ops type of things, right? Jira integration, ServiceNow, Slack, those type of things. And again, like I said, it's open source. It's not something that just Akuity is working on. We do have other outside people working on Kargo as well. Still very in its infant stage. It's not a very large community. It's mainly still just Akuity, but there are outside contributors from people that are contributing. So anyone's interested to take a look or hoping to contribute, it's there's a GitHub page there, or go to our Discord. Discord is probably mostly where the ad hoc communication happens, and most of the issues and things like that happen on the on the GitHub issues page. So anyway, that's Kargo in a nutshell. And so yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if there's if you have any questions, Kingdon, or anything you want me to clarify or anything like
Thanks so
that.
much for giving this presentation. I
Yeah,
could
of course.
definitely see a lot of interesting use cases. Like I would like to try next something like a Git repository with some Flux manifests pointing at OCI repositories.
Yep.
So we can show people how to publish their apps as OCI repositories and then use this to promote them.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
OCI is definitely something that's like already there and already evolving and things like that. But no, for sure.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Uh,
awesome.
cool. Let's stop the recording.